Welcome back to Figure Depot. Today we're taking a look at the Diamond Select 15th Anniversary The Dark Tower Gunslinger action figure. This was a Stephen King series of novels, and the Gunslinger is a character that appears in those, and then there is a movie that came out in 2016 which kind of crammed a bunch of them into one, and it wasn't very well received by a lot of people. I have not seen the film. I've seen portions of the film. I've seen a lot of the film, but I haven't seen it all the way through. But the character is very cool, and I'm trying to build a 1/12 scale collection of cowboys, outlaws, that type of figure. So I had a Skeletor in my collection that I wasn't doing anything with, so I traded it out for this guy. And anyway, Diamond Select has really elaborate packaging. You get a nice banner here, and then it's a card back with a blister bubble, but it has an extra little panel where they put different. It's a little different style packaging than what we typically see with figures, and they've been doing this for a while now. They, of course, you're probably familiar with the Marvel Select line, and they have pretty much most of the same characters that Marvel Legends by originally Toy Biz and then Hasbro makes. And Diamond Select, I know something in their licensing, if, let's say, that Hasbro can have 30 points of articulation on a figure, Diamond Select would only be able to have 20. Those are arbitrary numbers, but there's some kind of agreement in the licensing where they're not allowed to be quite as articulated as, say, Hasbro's Marvel Legends would be, as far as the Marvel characters are concerned. And so on a lot of those figures, you don't see just a ton of articulation, especially in the early ones. They've gotten a lot better, but in very early renditions, a lot of times you would have very limited articulation. They were more like slightly movable sculptures than they were necessarily action figures. So very excited to see how far they've come through the years. This particular figure is very, very, very articulate and is almost hand in hand with what we would get in a Marvel Legends, with just a couple of exceptions. So anyway, enough about that. Let's get him open and see what he's about. Alright, here's our figure out of the package, and before we get a closer look at him, let's just take a look. Every Diamond Select figure comes with a little fold-out pamphlet, certificate of authenticity, and it has this little mailer here, and then other products featured in the line as well. And it also, this particular figure, we'll just go ahead and go over his accessories real fast and get them out of the way and then look at the figure closer. He comes with this diorama, which is very nicely detailed. It's got a little dresser there with some odds and ends on it, and a little floor and wall, and then a little corkboard. And these pictures are supposed to be on that corkboard, but or that's how they appear on the back of the box, but these are photos of the Dark Tower and the Man in Black and the Gunslinger, and you could just tape them up on there, I suppose, or put some sticky tack or something on there, but those are the photos that come with it that can go up on there. And it's really nice. It's got a wash on the floor to give it some, you know, depth in the texture, and it's just a plastic piece, but really nicely detailed. And then I guess we'll go over his accessories real fast. So he comes with 2 of these revolvers. These are Remington New War revolvers, New Era revolvers. They look really nice. Got a lot of dry brushing on there to really give them a nice antique look. We've got sort of a gunmetal, of course, here, and then a nice gold, and then the handles are made to look wooden. But really nice detail on the guns, and of course you get 2 of those, 1 for each holster. And then you also get the horn of eld, which also has some very nice detail. It's got it looks like all metal, like a silver and then another type of metal maybe. I haven't seen the film, so that might be a bullhorn with metal trim on it. I'm not sure, but it just kind of looks like two-tone antique metal from what I'm looking at here, like a brass and a silver maybe that's tarnished. And he does come with the 2 hands you see on the figure, which are just kind of relaxed open hands, and then this hand for holding the horn of eld, and then he's got his hands with trigger fingers on them for shooting, and they're molded in a brown plastic and then painted brown as well to kind of cover up any paint chipping that might happen to go on with the figure over time, which is, I think, a great idea. Alright, looking at the figure up close, you can see very nice paint with the eyes and the beard and the hair textured and colored appropriately. I've got one little nick right here where they didn't seal the paint or missed the paint or it chipped off, but I can go back and touch that up and seal it again, no problem. Love the detail in this. It's a monochromatic gray color scheme, and he's got sort of a charcoal gray jacket, little duster jacket, and then he's got a crimson bandana with a white undershirt and this beautiful gray vest with all these buckles, and the sculpt work and line work on this is really, really nice. And he's got, you can see a brown belt under, for his pants, and then the gun holster belt on top of that, and this thing floats so you can move it around as you wish, which is really nice feature instead of just them having glued these on there, which they did with the Lone Ranger figure from the recent Lone Ranger film. But really nice detail, real good attention to detail. He's got his bullets there, that right there on the belt, little U-clip with some bullets, and just really nice, very thoughtful detail on this figure. You can see he's got a gray pants as well, which are a slightly different shade of gray than the coat, so you get this really nice variation in hue of the different grays, which just gives the figure a really, really nice look. This is actually like a light dusty brown wash they've put over here to simulate the dust. He's got some nice detail here with the little silver buttons on his sleeves, front and back. Looks really nice. You see this dry brushing here. It's a real soft, pliable plastic, so you'll be able to pose this figure pretty much any way you want to. And then he's got these awesome boots here, real dirtied up and weathered, that look fantastic, and just really, really nice attention to detail. This figure would fit in pretty much any universe you want to stick him in, honestly. Just really, really great figure. And we'll get one more pass up and down just to kind of look at the detail. It's unfortunate that the movie didn't do so well, because this is probably one of the best Marvel Select figures, that, in my opinion, that we have ever gotten. I mean, they knocked it out of the park with the sculpt, with the dry brushing, with the other paint, with all the detail of this figure. Just every time I pick it up and look at it, just blows me away. Yeah, really nice job. The head is on a ball joint, so he can look up to there, he can look down to there. Not a ton of movement, but certainly enough. And then of course he can rotate around 360 as well. We do get arms out to the side, really nice. There's a swivel at the bicep, we got our ball sockets here, we got a single jointed bend at the elbow, and I was hoping for a double jointed bend, but you know, it's good enough. There is no swivel here, just up at the top, so you'll have to be creative in how you move his upper arms around. He does have swivels and hinges right here at the wrists with each of the sets of interchangeable hands. He's got this diaphragm joint that moves around all over the place. It'll swivel and crunch back and forth. And his got some joints here. They're a little tight because I just pulled them out of the package, so I don't want to stress it too much. But the range of motion you can get this guy in is really good. They'll actually split out about to here, but having just pulled them out of the package, I don't want to stress it. We get a cut here at the thigh. We do get double jointed knees. And again, I want to be very careful because I just got him out of the package. But look at that knee bend. It's fantastic. Really nice knee bend there with those double jointed knees. And then, of course, ankle pivot on this thing is fan-flippin-tastic. So we get a rock back and forth. The camera's not focusing where I'm telling it to. Sorry about that. We get a up and down rock, and we get ankle pivot, and we get a swivel. So the articulation on this guy is just out of this world. Alright, so I've got one of the gripping hands, and then one of the weapon holding hands, and then I've got one of his weapons seated in the holster. And very versatile figure, so you can do a lot with this guy in terms of, you know, what he's able to hold and handle, and using different props and things. Really, really awesome, really versatile figure. There's a look at the Gunslinger, having borrowed the Lone Ranger's hat from behind him, and looks really cool. I'm gonna try to track down a hat that looks good on this guy and make him a little more versatile again. I'm not using this as part of the Dark Tower universe. I'm just trying to build a Western universe with 1/12 scale figures. So I'd like to pick a couple more of these guys up and just do some repaints on them and kind of give them a little variation in look, and see if I can create a couple different looks for a couple different characters to kind of expand my cowboy figure collection. But anyway, this guy is awesome, and I highly recommend him. If you just like quality figures, pick him up. If you like the Dark Tower books or the film, definitely recommend picking him up. You know, he's just a great figure that I think is going to please anybody that purchases him. The Remington revolvers are awesome, the holsters are awesome, the dry brushing, the sculpt, the paintwork, everything about this figure is just phenomenal. Alright, for some quick size comparisons, here he is next to the Lone Ranger figure by NECA, and you can see the articulation is vastly superior for this Gunslinger figure, but the look, overall look and style definitely goes very great with this NECA Lone Ranger figure, so very happy to have him in my collection. Alright, here he is next to a Mezco Spirit figure, which I have repainted to be my custom Dick Tracy figure, and you can see they definitely scale well together. The Spirit figure is just a hair shorter than the Diamond Select Gunslinger figure, but it's still close enough to make it work. Here he is next to my Funko Rocketeer action figure, and you can see that the Rocketeer is definitely shorter. This is a true 1/12 scale. Diamond Select is a little bit larger in scale. He's not as huge as some of the bigger Marvel Legends Diamond Select figures, but he's definitely kind of right in between, actually, what you'd get in a Hasbro Marvel Legends figure versus a Marvel Select figure. He's kind of splits the scale right in half. Here he is next to a 80 years Iron Man figure by Hasbro from Marvel Legends, and you can see once again he's just a bit taller. Here he is next to the A4 She-Hulk figure, and you can tell they're very similar in height, so she is a giant, of course, compared to standard Marvel Legends figures, so he's definitely not in scale with your average Marvel Legend. He's definitely a bit larger. Here he is next to the Masters of the Universe Classics He-Man figure, and he is just a hair taller, but He-Man has definitely been drinking more protein, so he's a much thicker, fuller-bodied figure. Here he is next to a Marvel Legends Mr. Sinister by Hasbro, and you can see they're virtually the same size. Here he is next to a Twilight Edward Cullen figure, which I'm using for a Bruce Wayne figure because Robert Pattinson is our new Batman. And here he is next to a Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns Multiverse Batman figure. Once again, these are kind of built on the same body as the Masters of the Universe Classics, so very beefy figure, but still shorter than the Gunslinger. Both of these figures kind of have that apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic kind of feel to them. Batman from Batman vs. Superman in the Nightmare sequence. I thought these looked pretty cool together. And here he is next to a standard DC Universe Classics size Batman figure, and you can tell that the DC Universe Classics were definitely a true 6-inch scale, and scale a little bit shorter than your more modern Marvel Legends, which are much taller. And I think this last wave of multiverse figures is just a slight bit taller than the standard DC Universe Classics figures were. And here he is next to a NECA Street Fighter 4 Akuma figure, and you can see once again he's got a beefier, wider body, but is a little bit shorter than this Diamond Select figure. Alright, I was curious to see how he would scale against the DC Essentials figures from DC Direct, and as you can see, they're pretty much identical in height. So there's you a true scale for kind of how this guy's going to fit in with what line, other than, of course, his own, which I think was just 2 figures. I think it was just the Man in Black and the Gunslinger. But your new DC Essentials line, he fits perfectly in scale with. To give you an idea of what I was talking about as far as how his articulation compares to some of the earlier Diamond Select or Marvel Select figures, we have this Wolverine here, and you can see his head was on a ball joint, so, you know, but a very limited ball joint, no disc hinge. The arms did come out to the side, and he did have a single jointed bend here and then a cut here, but the wrists have this weird angled cut right here, which gives you, you know, very weird looking articulation for this guy. And the legs were on like a ball socket here, and then you had a little bend there, and that was it. And then no ankle pivot, just an ankle rocker and no ankle swivel. So, and we did get a waist swivel. So the articulation on these older Marvel Select figures, very, very, very limited, and they do better, I think, as, you know, sculpted, you know, more like a sculpture that you would admire in a fixed pose rather than an articulated figure that you could pose around and do a lot more stuff with. So anyway, alright, that's going to wrap it up for me. Just want to take a look at this figure real quick. Very pleased with it. I give it a 10 out of 10. Everything from articulation to sculpt to paint to accessories, everything is just fantastic. Very, very pleased with this figure. Highly recommend it. Please let me know if there's any other figures out there that I'm not aware of that are Western looking in the 1/12 scale, because I'd love to track some more down. So drop me some comments below and let me know what other figures I can add to my collection. in this style. And let me know what your favorite figure line of all time is. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe as you're so inclined, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh, and don't forget to check out my Instagram, Figure Depot, one word. Thank you. See you later.